Where is the narrative getting messed up here? Who's getting it wrong, and how do we correct it?
Well, we're not on any tribal land, zero. I'm not saying at one time that they didn't have possession of this land. Of course they did. But treaties were entered into many years ago. We had nothing to do with that. And so we're on private land. Mm-hmm. So as far as historical sites to be destroyed, the Army Corps of Engineers, the state of North Dakota, the federal government, our archaeologists surveyed the sites. We just didn't go recklessly begin to.
It was a long process.
It was a long process, 3 years of work to finally determine the correct route to minimize impact on the environment, minimize impact on human life, and avoid getting on Indian property. We're not on their property.
Right. Well, everyone in the protest, I mean, not everyone, many seem to be very confused as to that very fact, because they think that they're taking over the lands. But those same folks also believe that the entire United States belongs to the tribe and that we shouldn't be on it at all. So some of those folks are just not going to convince either way. But I want to talk about the economic impact, because I am from South Dakota, and I've seen the economic impact in North Dakota as well as South Dakota and surrounding states with the energy revolution there. You know, that accounts for natural gas and fracking, but also things like this pipeline that could really revolutionize North Dakota and the surrounding states. So what is it actually going to do for these people if they allow it to be created and they allow it to be functional?
Well, it will be functional. It will be created. North Dakota is handicapped by about $7 a barrel. That's big. That's really big. It's the second largest oil field in the United States, second only to the Permian and Delaware Basin. And yet they're handicapped. Why are they handicapped? Because it's expensive to rail. It costs a lot of money to rail a tanker full of crude to the Gulf Coast of Texas and unload it. It costs about $13 per barrel to do that, whereas our pipeline is more like $6 per barrel. Now you back up and give that to the people that drill the wells, give that to the economy of North Dakota. That is a big economic impact. Also, go forward. Now the refiners, the petrochemical industry along the Gulf Coast has access to another source of crude. That likewise is a big deal.
Well, it certainly is. And I'd like to mention as well, you're talking about the rails and we're talking about the way that it has always been transported. But pipelines, correct me if I'm wrong, are usually far more safe for the environment than rails or trucks to transport crude or other energy, correct?
Far more safe, yes.
So, again, when we're talking about the water, that seems to be the big argument here. The environmentalists, as well as some in the tribe, and then some that have just come into protest, are saying that the water is going to be contaminated and that these folks are going to face something kind of like what they've experienced in Flint, Michigan. They think that the water is going to be damaged and these folks are going to be sick, ill, are going to have the repercussions of this. So can you assure these people that that's not going to happen?
Pipelines do leak, Tommy. They do. Typically, it's older pipelines. Typically, it's human error where somebody digs and hits the pipeline. It almost never occurs on brand new steel bored underneath the river, 90 to 115 feet below the river bed. It just doesn't.